Well, no, that's all. I think that's all good stuff. Especially what you said about sacred. In a world that everything becomes less and less sacred, the more social we
Yeah,
get. It's very easy just to portray something you're not, or something that you want boys to be looking for, because you think that's what they want, right? Like,
right.
I feel for girls in some aspects because they're trying to portray an image they think guys want. But in reality, like
Yeah,
you just said, we're not. If you're looking for a solid guy, I would argue he's probably not looking for that. It's kind of what you were saying, right?
yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that. Like
Yeah.
they have a different kind of mentality or kind of thought process of what they want from their significant other, and that's probably not it. Not saying you can't like appreciate like what you look like or whatever like that, but just some things are not. I don't know. It's a little bit of a turn off because then you give it to everybody. It's
Mm,
not just for that
mm.
that one person. You have access to everybody. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of girls fall into regret of that. Like, I didn't know it was going to go this far. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's like
Right.
one picture to that one person that you think you're trying to get, and then all of a sudden it turns into a school wallpaper or something. I don't know if that's happened to anybody, but hey, I'm just saying, like, that's
Yeah.
real life.
No, for real.
Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, that's great. I love that. I think that's such a good reminder, especially with a social media infatuated youth. I mean, I'm on it all the time
Yeah.
too, so it's very
Right.
easy to scroll through or put pictures up. It's easy, like you said. Um,
Yeah.
hey, I want to invite, speaking of the wifey, I want to invite the wifey up to ask her a
She
question.
she is coming. She is the better looking half. I'll tell you that.
Uh-oh.
Come on over.
There you go. Shout out Karlie Antazana. Here she
You have the
is,
seat one guy.
live
Nice over here.
in the chat. How are you doing?
What's up, baby?
Not much. I'm glad you guys could join us tonight. It's been
Yeah, for having us. I feel like I'm on the radio. I feel like we like have those big microphones down, and it's just like they can't see it.
right.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I almost feel more important because I have headphones on. I'm a gamer, is what I've been told,
Yeah, you
even
look
though I
like the
suck at
whole.
every game I've played.
You're the game master, like from the Hunger Games, like the whole switchboard. You.
But hey, so I wanted to ask you a question. Um, so I didn't
Before you
know.
ask, just
Yes,
make one thing.
let's make it clear. Go ahead.
Okay, I just feel like I need to clear the air, like, literally, and
Do
like
it.
I was looking for. I saw I was sitting here to also prove a point. But guys, that happened one time. I don't just like go to sleep and then just fart it up. Okay, that's not how it goes down. I feel like I made it come out like I just go to sleep and then I just lose all control of myself. Like, no, that's just not true. That's one time. And the ratio between my farts and Jake farts are like 0 to 100.
Yeah,
Okay, so you
yeah.
just set the ratio straight. If all of you guys are out there listening, that's where it was a little bit embellished. But I'm sorry, you can continue now.
Yeah, let's go there. That's the ratio of farts. Jake wins.
Ooh, yeah.
So I want to ask. I don't want to just. So Jake kind of gave a message to the girls on, hey, this is what I was looking for at that age, and
Sure.
obviously, you guys are now married. So if anyone, he can speak to it best, as well as you can, because it worked for you guys. You are in the end goal of marriage. So the
Hey.
question is, Karlie, what was it that you were looking for in a guy? Maybe it developed over time from high school to college to Jake. I just kind of want
Yep.
to walk through what it looked like for you. So this
Okay,
is to the
well,
guys.
yes, to the guys, I think the first thing for me, if we're talking about like high school, middle school, like baby Karlie, I'm a huge family person, so they had to get along with my family. Like that
Mm.
was a no-brainer. I have one sibling. I have an older brother. He's almost 6 years older than me, but he's like legitimately my best friend. So whoever I would bring around, they had to A, mesh with my family, but B, be even more close with my brother. So I know when Jake and I were exploring our relationship and I brought him around, he met my parents first. I like literally waited for him to meet my brother because I was like, okay, meet my parents. And then it
Mm.
was like, if he meets my brother and he gets on with my brother, like we're good. And my brother's name is Jeremy. And I was like, all right, Jeremy, like we're gonna meet Jake, like yada, yada, yada. And I was like, you need to be honest with me. Like, if you don't like him, like, you need to tell me because this is just not going to work. Like, I need to know. So that part was huge for me because he's just my best friend and my family. I do everything with them as much as I can. But obviously, like, faith became very, very important to me when I became when I got into college and became a part of FCA and Young Life and more involved in the church around here. And when I was able to see kind of, that light in Christ leak through someone's character instead of them just going and showing up, but actually like exiting the building and just being in their day to day was super attractive to me. And you were able to see a level of care about not only themselves, but just others genuinely. And to realize that I could be the recipient of some of that love on a deeper level. I was like, I would love to find someone like that. Yeah. So that definitely played a big part in it too. I'm an athlete, grew up an athlete my whole life, so that was also really important to me. Someone who like can be athletic in some capacity. Doesn't have to be the exact same sports or anything like that, but someone who would watch sports with me, play sports with me, just do the same things as me. I think that's one of Jake and I's favorite hobbies is like going to sporting events, like watching games or playing games, watching sports on TV. That's definitely like one of our favorite pastimes. So I think those three things are definitely like the staples for me. Everything else is fine. Like I can be the talker, clearly. I can like be the organized one. I'll do the cleaning. I'll do whatever. But the three things were family, faith, and sports for sure.
Yeah, and I love that because it's not all like love Jesus. I mean, yeah, that is the core of who we are, but there is more to it to be that committed, right? I mean, we have a whole church. You guys have a whole church full of people who love Jesus. Doesn't mean you're going to marry everybody in that church.
Right.
So I really like that you put that in the perspective of like, hey, let's have similar interests, family. Like that's huge for you, and even the aspect of watching how they act around others was kind of what you're getting at. Like I see how Jake cares for his youth group and how much he loves them. I can be a recipient of that. On like you said, I love how you said on a much deeper level because that's what it is, right? Marriage is first. I just think that's a great point. Like how you act around other people, like not necessarily with that person, because sometimes you put on a little flex when you're around that person. You'll wear nice clothes, you'll buy good chocolates, right?
You'll put your good perfume, like jump back.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so I love that. I think it's cool for you just to bring that into light. Like it's like, hey, how do you act behind the scenes? And maybe not behind the scenes like nobody's watching, but when everybody else is watching besides the one you want to be watching, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And I think you're exactly right because when you're dating, it's like you're trying so hard to impress them because you like them so much. But when you're not just with them and you're seeing them live their life, like that's the person you're ultimately going to be with. Like they're not showing off for you their whole life. Like you can't, that's not sustainable. That's not realistic. So just like the core of their being, their character, that's the person you're going to be surrounded around, all day, every day. So you want to know who that person is.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that answer. Thank you so much, Karlie. Guys, listen to that. What are you doing behind the scenes? And family does matter. Family does matter. I think that's a show. Hey, so actually, for the next 2 minutes, I'm actually going to try to see if I can put a little 2-minute timer on. But we're going to just take rapid fire questions for me, Jake, or Karlie. Can be whatever y'all want to say. Let's see here. Oh. So I saw a couple questions already in the chat. So we got this 2-minute timer up now. So I'm just going to read a couple questions to you guys, and we'll go from there. We're going to take this next couple minutes for the comments to go wild. From Chloe Ranaldi. I don't know how to say that intricately.
Ronaldo.
What's the most intricate thing Karlie has learned to cook so far?
Oh,
is that for Jake?
That is for you two to figure out. I'm not sure.
You answer first.
What do you think? I want to know.
She makes a really nice peanut butter and jelly.
Come on.
Actually, she really doesn't. I make a better peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, thank you. You make good stuff. She made.
Okay.
Go ahead. like we're married. She made salmon the other night from like scratch. Like she caught it out in the backyard
Yeah, guys.
and skinned it and
Yeah.
all.
That sucker.
She did broil it. It was very good.
In the Heather Glen Pond.
That yeah.
I hear
We had to,
wild
like-
stuff comes out of there.
We're trying to get immune to the virus, so we're trying to eat a lot of bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eat
that-
bacteria to survive bacteria. I'm with it.
No, but I think the salmon was pretty good. And then
That's pretty cool.
I make some good Chinese food, honestly, like homemade Chinese food. I can do like some stir fry, fried rice, veggies, that whole thing.
on.
The shebang.
Whole bang.
So
There we go. So that is why Jake married Karlie, for her cooking as well. Not the only
Yeah,
thing.
it's all.
All right, next question from Lima Beans,
Asa.
aka Asa. What got you through the season of singleness? Was there a clear sign of the end of your singleness? Like, how did you know to pursue the right relationships? And Asa, if I didn't ask that right, you can type it in the comments again, because sometimes I mess things up. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. That's a great question, Asa. And I think for me, I know when I went into my sophomore years when I met Jake, sophomore year of college, and that summer I literally had like told myself I just gotten through a crazy time in my life. I didn't know what I wanted, didn't know who I was. So that year I was like, you know what, like God, like, I'm going in sophomore year. I don't want any boys, like I don't want anything. I just want to figure myself out. Like I just want to do me. And it was when I could relinquish that power or the thought that I could control when I would date someone, when I would get in a relationship, was when God gave me something. He was like, hey, thanks for letting go of the control. Like I will bless you when it's time. And so not trying to predict the time when it's going to happen, but to just know that God's timing is always perfect and that he's just going to provide it exactly when it's supposed to come. And like that's exactly when Jake just slid into my Twitter DMs and I was like, what the heck? This was not supposed to happen. But it did. And it was perfect.
Boom.
Yeah.
Social media used for good. Right there. Right there.
What would you say?
Well, I see Tyla and Trinity also chiming in, and Asa just a little bit. And for that, I mean, it really is up to what you let. So, like they ask, do you let fate or God define who, or kind of lead you to who you're going to marry, or like whatever it might be. The reality of it is, kind of what we've been talking about at youth, is like, hey, like when you're, it depends like what your foundation is built on. You know what I'm saying? If your foundation is built on how somebody looks physically, like if all you're going to be looking for is physical attraction, then your relationship is probably going to be built on that. And they might be the cutest boy, or they might be like the best looking girl, but in all reality, they might not have like the best personality. They might not have the best like mind. You know what I'm saying? So the thing that like we need to build our relationships on, and the stuff that we need to let lead us, is really God. Like that's like the basic answer. But somebody drew it up the best for me. So like they made like a triangle. So like the base is like, it's like at the base of a triangle, there's a boy and there's the girl, and at the top of the triangle there's God. And really what the intention and what the design was is, hey, at the bottom of it, if you meet each other at the bottom, all that you're doing is destroying what God had intended. You're destroying that intended shape, if that makes sense. So if you think about a shape for your life, like God did not intend your shape to be a straight line. And what you're doing is at the bottom, you're settling for that lowest standard.
Wow.
And so the higher you go up, and the higher you go up, the closer you get to God, the closer you get to meeting and fulfilling that potential. But even if you get to the point where you're not totally there yet, and you're like, man, they're almost there, and you still cut off that top little triangle, you're not there yet. And a lot of times we do that as young people. We settle, and that's really what it is. We settle for less than what God has for us, because we're just like, oh, this is the best you could ever get, and stuff like that. And I'm not saying people are perfect, but we always have to be striving to become the right person rather than looking for the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, we're getting questions on questions right now. I want to give a shout out to Michaela and Autumn. What's up?
Hey.
Joined us. So Michaela says, do you think there's a right age to start dating? Do you think there's a right age to start dating? Nobody wants to
Yes.
hear our answer. Nobody.
Don't date till you're out of college.
Out of college.
Period.
Period.
But hey, I mean, I think there is something to that, right? Like, it's the idea that there's so much more to find out about yourself. There's relationships I thought in high school were going to be the end goal. Like, oh my gosh, we're getting married. Like, I wrote my name, or she wrote her name and put my last name after. Like, that's how serious we were. Yeah, I would really say it's all about, like Karlie was saying, it's about that perspective of shaping your own perspective towards what God wants for you and chasing after that, and you'll run into somebody along the way, right? Like, you're running a path, she's running a path, you're gonna intersect, and you're gonna keep going with it. And so I think you guys met. Part of the reason was you both started doing Young Life, if I'm not mistaken-ish.
/FCA.
/FCA. Okay, so same ministries, right? Perfect example where it's like two people chasing after God, not really worried about one another or even knowing, and then all of a sudden you intersect and you're there. So a right age to start dating, I think, is based just solely on, are you really going after what God has for you specifically?
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Like, I know people who are in high school who are ready to date, but the people around them are not suitable people to be dating because they're not at the level that they need to be at. You know what I'm saying? And, I mean, you can even say the same thing about college kids. They're,
right.
You know.
Yeah, it's like you're chasing your goal that all God has for you, and all of a sudden these kids are like trying to just run right for you. Like, beeline, forget God, yeah. I want to be with you. So
coming for your knees, so watch out.
Right, straight up. Knock you out of his call. It's like, that's not true. But let's see. Autumn Smith said, how do you know when you found the one God wants for you? I think we kind of answered that, right? Like, it's chasing what God's given you, and you intersect.
And it aligning with that,
yeah. You guys did that, and me and Aubrey did that. That kind of answers Chloe's question a little bit. She says, JT, how did you know that Aubrey was the one? And Karlie, how did you know that Jake was the one? And at least for me, it was not an overnight thing. It was a mixture of everything that Jake and Karlie were saying. It's like figuring out, what does God have for me? Like, what am I specifically called to? And what are my friends around me thinking? Like, when they look on the outside in, are they like, yeah, this is healthy? Because, love is blind sometimes. No, I don't think love is blind. Jesus was not blind. He healed blind eyes. Let's see. Last question.
Well, we'll come in on that one real quick.
Yeah. Go for it.
So I know, like, in knowing, I think that's different for everyone. Like, oh, it was love at first sight. Like, oh, it took 10 years. Oh, it took, 10 weeks. But personally, for me, I know a lot of it was when it got more serious, when it just wasn't dating, but it was very much intentional, and it was for, the goal of getting married. Jake very early on shared his heart on his calling of his life, and that was to become a pastor, and that, those steps are, to be a youth pastor, to be involved in ministry full time, and that to be his life. And I commend him so much in knowing who God has called him to be, and telling me that early on in our relationship, and saying, this is not going to waver. It doesn't matter who I end up marrying, but this is a calling on my life, and this is, where I'm going to be. And it was basically like, are you on board with that? Are you okay with that? And initially that scared the crap out of me, because I was like, I am not a youth pastor's wife. I am not a pastor's wife. Like, that is not me. Like, you got the wrong girl. I told my mom, she was like, heck no. Like, that's not us. And it was frightening. It truly was. And I think I was just I was so taken back, because I was like, wow, like, here's a man who really knows what he wants and knows what he's after. So it was time for me to figure out, what is a calling on my life? What am I going after? And like we were saying earlier, does that align with Jake's life? Does the path that God has me on align with Jake's path? So when I was able to step back from that, we had to kind of take a break from dating so I could try to figure that out and say, you know what? Where you're at, and it's not fair for me to try and be in this relationship with you if I don't know where I'm at, if I don't know if I'm ready for this, if I don't know if this is the path that's going to align with mine. So we actually took a little bit of a break for me to figure that out, and I did a lot of prayer and just self-reflection. And I think, Chloe, to answer your question more specifically, is when I realized what God had in store for me, that it did align with what Jake had for his life too. And that's why I was like, you know what, there's no one else I'd rather try and achieve both of our goals with than him.
Yeah.
So for me, we got to make this thing work. Like this is meant to be. This is God's plan, and now it's time to get to work.
Oh, applause. Hey, one more question, then we're going to get back into the questions we have for you guys. Tyla is asking, do you think there could be many heartbreaks before you meet the one?
So I am the only one, I think, in this. JT, correct me if I'm wrong. I know Karlie's had her heart broken. I believe JT has. I could be wrong.
Yep.
And so I have never, as weird as it is, I've never had my heart broken, I guess. I've never had my heart broken romantically.
Yeah.
In a better way, in a relationship.
Yeah.
With a girlfriend or whatever. And I personally, I don't believe that there has to be heartbreak before you find the one. And Karlie and JT can speak differently to it, but I had to set boundaries and guardrails for myself that protected me from getting hurt. It protected me from being in harm's way, if that makes sense. Because a lot of times what we do is, if you guys are there for our relationship goals series, what we do is when we get into a relationship with somebody, what we do is we give pieces and parts of ourselves away, whether it is physically, whether it is emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. And what happens is the more we get connected to somebody, when we tear apart, it destroys us on the inside more than anything. And one thing I was really good at is being, as bad as it is, like I had to protect myself. I had to protect the things that God had entrusted me with. And you know, that went a lot. It went down to my mom and my dad praying for me all the time. Like I go back to my mom all the time, asking her, I'm just like, hey, like, thank you for like praying for me. And she's like, Jake, you don't understand how many hours I spent on my knees praying for you specifically. And I was like, well, thank you. I was a problem child out of the three, but I ended up the best. Don't tell my siblings. But yeah.
Yeah.
My parents prayed for me like nonstop, and that's something that I'm so grateful for. That's something that not everybody has, and that's I believe that's a big reason why I ended up the way I did, even today. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, there's heartbreak. So.
Yeah. And I think I would agree. And Tyler, to kind of answer your question, at least from my perspective, is you can have as many heartbreaks as you want. If that means you want to go through 10, then you might go through 10. If you want to go through 1, and sometimes I understand you can't control it, but like Jake said, setting up those boundaries will limit those heartbreaks. So for me, I didn't set up those boundaries until later in my life, so I experienced a lot more heartbreak throughout my life just because I wasn't smart with those boundaries. So that's what I would say about amount of heartbreaks. I got just 2 more questions for you, Jake, before we get off of this thing. But, you know, you were talking about your family a little bit earlier and how they were praying for you. I'm not sure how many people know your testimony. I don't know who all knows it, but I know you lost your father at a pretty young age. He passed away. And I don't know, I was just reading fatherless statistics, and it's all these different things. Like, they're more likely to get into drug abuse. They're more likely to get into physical abuse and, you know, like sexual relationships, just because they're searching for a feeling. They're looking for that thing they never had in a father. And I'm asking this question on the behalf of the absent fathers, right? Not just maybe passing, but the people who were never there, who may have left through divorce or even a sickness like your own. And I just want to ask this question: what would you say to those who don't have a father? Like, what was most helpful during that time? What was something that really helped you get through that process and not give in to all these statistics that are saying fatherless children do blank? If you could just speak into that.
Yeah, I think the most important thing for anybody is community. And I mean, you sent me this question too, and I really appreciate you asking it because it's just shows like how much you care and how much you know. But I know the biggest thing for me was community. I was a part of a youth group growing up, and when everything happened, everything went down. I hated God. I've said that before, and I didn't want anything to do with him. I like stopped going to church for a couple months. It wasn't too long, but I had a youth pastor. Her name was Jessica, and she would reach out to me and she would check on me. And one thing that helped, something that always helped me was like having outlets. Like I always had football, I had sports, and then I had church. And I just learned how to kind of grow through the pain, through having that community, having two of my best friends, Nate and Jesse, side by side with me through literally everything. And the best thing about the community wasn't that I just had people around me. It was that I had the right people around me. And I think a lot of times what we do is we put people around us when we're going through something tough, but they're not the right influence. And in that time, I was lucky enough and I was blessed enough, and my mom was praying for me, my dad was praying for me. And I was put in a place where the people around me that influenced me the heaviest were positive influences, but also cared about my soul more than they cared about my emotions. They cared about my soul more than they cared about anything else. And that was the thing that impacted me even today. Like, I still text my youth pastor, Jessica. She's still the youth pastor at my church growing up. And, she's one of the biggest influences in my life. And that's the coolest thing to me is like she was a female who had a direct impact on my life. When my dad, a male figure, passed away, and that's what I love about the church. That's why I'm so passionate about One Youth. That's why I'm so proud of you for being just listening to your calling from UIC all the way to Lift Youth, and because there are kids out there who just need somebody, and they're gonna run to somebody. It doesn't matter who, but the fact that we can be there and we can be that somebody is humongous. Like even for you, like I know girls text you all the time, and I know Aubrey. I know she gets middle school questions, high school questions all the time, and it is the most humbling job, but something I'm so proud of, and like I'm a product of it. Like this is why I am where I am.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that is huge. Man, thank you for sharing that. I do have kind of a sub question in that you kind of talked about. You said my friends care about my soul more than they do my emotions. What could you just maybe even give a brief example of what that looks like? What is a friend who cares about the soul more? Because obviously that matters. I believe that's more important than our emotions. But what would be an example, hypothetical or real, of a friend who cares about the soul more than they care about your emotions?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing for me was like, for me specifically, I get so stuck and I get so like buried in my own feelings sometimes, and I need somebody like just to like yank me out and like say like, hey, I'm gonna walk by you, I'm gonna do this thing with you. And I think the biggest thing, biggest example I could use is like maybe just like when I'm not feeling it, or like when I'm not in the mood for it, they would still like say like, hey, like we're going to church tonight, like hey, we're going to youth group tonight, and then I would leave that moment maybe not wanting to go. I would go like half-heartedly, but when I would leave that place, I would always feel lifted up. I would always feel encouraged because they knew what would make me feel better, deeper than just my emotions. And when I was okay spiritually, everything else became better. Like I felt better physically, like I felt better emotionally, like mentally, like all that stuff, and it sprouted from the roots of me being spiritually okay.
Yeah. Man, I could spend all night just listening to y'all because you guys are some wise people.
Man, you're so cute, JT.
I hope Aubrey feels the same way. I hope. Just kidding. I'm fairly confident she does. Last question, and I'll let you guys go, and I'll let our viewers get on with the rest of their night. Here it is for both of you. What is a Netflix show all youth should binge during the quarantine?
Ooh, that's a good question. I already know my answer, and I'm gonna say it first. The Office. Watch The Office. Best show on.
Literally, guys, Jake and I last week just finished The Office. I kid you not, for the 11th time.
Come on.
For her.
It never falls. It's so good.
11 times.
It's the best show ever created. And like, listen, season 1 is a little rough. Get through season 1, and then it gets like 1,000 times better. It just gets better every season. Michael Scott is my hero.
He is the modern day hero. If you want to learn from anyone, learn from Psych.
Yep.
Hey, well, thank you guys so much. For those of you who are listening in, I did not just ask Jake and Karlie to get on here because I thought it would be fun. I got them on here because I believe they are for community. They are for people. There's a lot of times in church where you could see a loving face on Sunday, and then they could talk about you behind your back with their friends on Friday. But I'm personally friends with these two, and I've watched them love you guys even when you're not around. You know, like they have cared for you. They've put their hurts out there. Like, man, I just want these kids to understand because I care about them so much. So if you don't already know that, they're caring for you on and off the scenes, and I'm just super thankful to be in their life and to have them on tonight. And like I said, I could talk to them for days and days, and if you guys need somebody to learn from or to even look to what it looks like to be a leader, these two are great examples. So thank you guys for joining in and being part of this podcast / YouTube Live / whatever you want to call it.
Dude, thank you.
Radio show.
Radio show, yeah.
Streamer
/ gamer. Yeah.
Twitch.tv.
/ giveaway of money we don't have. All of it. Hey, we're going to be doing this stuff every Monday night on the YouTube channel at 7 o'clock. So just be tuning in. Check it out. If you have not checked out Emmanuel's, they also have one. I'm pretty sure it's One Youth, right? Is One Youth Salisbury?
Yeah. One Youth Salisbury, yeah.
We're
going to be posting. Yeah.
So this video itself will actually be reposted for us this Friday. And for for One Youth, they'll probably let you guys know through their remind text and different things like that. But is there any closing remarks you guys have or anything like that, or can we just wrap this thing up and call it a day?
Nope. Love JT. He's the man.
Yeah, JT, guys, he's a real deal. You guys are lucky over there at Lyft. Keep reaching out to us, guys. We're just as bored as you are, so we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Send us a Snapchat, send us a text, send us your favorite TikTok so we can watch them and laugh too.
Please.
Amen. That's a good truth right there. That's one of the best things we had all night.
Yeah, you're.
All right. Well, hey, this is the Lift, or not the Lift. It's the Youth Podcast. And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you all
Thanks, JT.
next Monday. Yep. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.